Hello, this is Ron Clymer at Clymer School of Real Estate in Orlando, Florida. And I'm here to talk to you about the fourth principle of success from Napoleon Hill's Principles of Success. And I don't really know why I got interested in doing this and putting it on YouTube, but I hope it's something that is worthwhile to you, because this is not about passing the Florida real estate exam. This is about, well, it's about making money in real estate. Because if you want to make money in real estate, it's good if you're doing the things that lead towards success. Well, the fourth principle of success is having a pleasing personality. Well, that's right up there at the top of the list. And Napoleon Hill says the first thing you need to do to have a pleasing personality is have a positive mental attitude. And that's got to be right. Nobody wants to be around negative Nellie. Everybody wants to be around positive Pete, somebody that's doing the job and getting the job done and happy. And you know, whatever happens, it's good. Everything happens for a good reason. And there's a lot of things that go with positive mental attitude, but having one helps you. Now, the second thing is what he calls flexibility, and that's certainly true. You know, there's a lot of people that are very comfortable in one situation, but really uncomfortable in another. Well, the more comfortable you can be in a variety of situations, the better. And so the more flexibility you have, if things are good, you can handle that. If things are not so good, you can handle that too. Also, his third characteristic of a pleasing personality is sincerity. People can tell when you're sincere. People can tell when you're talking to them and you say, listen, I sincerely want to help you get your house sold. They know, they can tell. And now the next thing, and by the way, this is not only a characteristic of a pleasing personality, this is a characteristic of just being successful, and that is promptness of decision. You know, there's a lot of people, you say, should we do this or should we do that? Well, they want to think about it 30 minutes or 30 days. Trust me, the most successful people, give them a set of facts, give them all the facts, and they make a decision. Right, wrong, or indifferent, they make a decision. And promptness of decision is a characteristic of a pleasing personality. People don't like people that are sitting around, well, I don't know if I want to do this or I want to do that. Make a decision. By the way, if you're in the sales business, we're in the business of leading people to decisions. So if you can't make a decision, no wonder you can't lead anybody else to make a decision. Get in the habit of when something comes up, make a decision. Now, the next thing he talks about, and this is, oh man, this is basic. It's just common courtesy. And by the way, in the 21st century, common courtesy seems to be a lot more uncommon than it used to be. And I'm talking courtesy about opening the door for others. Don't talk while others are talking. Just common courtesy. Now, his next characteristic that Napoleon Hill talks about is a pleasing tone of voice. You know, some people just have an obnoxious voice. Well, if that's you, I say go get some voice lessons if you need to. But there's some people, their voice is just not pleasant to listen to. If your voice is not pleasant to listen to, work on that. Work on that. Also, the habit of smiling. People like to be around people that smile, and it's a habit. It's a habit. Some people just have a habit of frowning, and some people have a habit of smiling. People that have a habit of smiling seem to be better liked by other people. So work on that. And just your facial expressions in general. You don't need to have inappropriate facial expressions. You're at a funeral, you don't need to be sitting there smiling. You need to have an appropriate facial expression for what's going on. Now, his next characteristics of success is tactfulness. And there you got to learn to be tactful. You know, if we all said exactly what we thought, whew, man, it'd probably be, murder rate would probably go up. But you don't need to say exactly what you're thinking, but you need to get your point across. And, you know, you go out and you look at a seller's house and it's all disheveled and not in good shape, and, you know, you can say, oh, this is the nastiest house I ever seen. But that's not going to get you the listing. You got to learn to be a little tactful. You need to be real careful with tactfulness and try to put that. Now, by the way, his next characteristic is frankness. You got to be honest, but you got to be tactful. And so you got to figure out how to tell people and that, you know, what the situation is. Gee, Mr. Seller, I've had your house listed for 6 months. It hasn't been shown. Maybe we're a little ambitious with that price. And so you need to tell people. The next characteristic that he mentions is sense of humor. You got to have a sense of humor. By the way, you got to have a sense of humor. If you're in real estate, you got to have a sense of humor to keep yourself from going crazy. Because, and it's funny in real estate how we can laugh about something that happened a year ago. And that, you know, but now when it was happening a year ago, nobody was laughing. Well, that's the secret to a sense of humor. Laugh as soon as it happens. You know, your deal falls apart, go ahead and laugh about it. So anyway, now also, and I mentioned this, by the way, the previous principle was faith. I think people know when you got faith that things are going to work out. And I think people appreciate that, and it makes them like you better. Also, a sense of justice. People appreciate when you have a sense of justice. When you're doing things that are unfair, and you know, there's a lot of people that make a career out of doing things that are unfair, of abusing their employees, of abusing the people they do business with. People know when you're that way, and they don't like it. And people know when you're not that way, and or when you're fair, and they do like that. Now, another characteristics of a pleasing personality, you got to learn to control your emotions. You can't be losing your temper. I mean, and this is not most of the time. This is all of the time. You cannot lose your temper in business. And not only lose your temper, but, you know, sometimes everybody else is laughing about something and you're not laughing about it because you know laughing about it would be inappropriate. Or everybody else is mad, stay calm. And so learn to control your emotions. Now, Napoleon Hill calls this alertness of interest. I call it rapt attention. When you are talking with people, especially people you're selling to, learn to give them your undivided, don't vary from it attention. And I mean, if you can learn to do that, you will not believe how much more people like you. When you can just give them your attention and whatever they say, you are hanging on their every word. And if you can learn to do that, you will not find many characteristics in salesmanship that will serve you better than that. Learn to pay attention when people are talking to you. And number one, if you learn to do that, they like you better. You might say that's the initial benefit, but guess what? You figure out more about what they're about. That's almost like an ancillary benefit. Now, you need to have effective speech. You need to learn to talk to people. By the way, here's a great word to learn: succinct. If you can learn to say in 20 words what it used to take you 200 words to say, that's good. People like succinctness. They like you to cut to the chase. And that's more true today than it was 20 years ago or back when Napoleon Hill was around. The next thing he talks about is versatility. The more versatile you are, the more you know a little bit about this, a little bit about that, and a little bit about the other thing, the better. Also, if you just like people, You know, I got a friend and I love him dearly, but we both acknowledge that he hates people. He just doesn't like people. And I said, you got to get over that. Start liking people, because when you like people, well, they tend to like you. Does that make sense? Now, by the way, Napoleon Hill has a whole thing for controlling your temper. Well, controlling your emotions, controlling your temper. But as I said, there is just no chance that you can lose your temper in business and it not cost you not only money, but a lot of money sometimes. So just don't even think about ever losing your temper in business. Now, sometimes I act like maybe I've lost my temper when the truth is I haven't really gone off the deep end. Now, another thing that he mentions is hope and ambition. You know, people like people that are looking forward to the future. That's true when you're 25 and it's true when you're 65. If you're looking forward to the future and you're planning on doing stuff and you've got plans, I have students here in class. They're 20, they're 30 years old, and you can just tell that they're ambitious. And the truth is, I like that in my students. And there's other people in class, you can tell, well, they just don't seem to have much ambitions. I don't even understand sometimes how they got to real estate school. But you got to have hope, you got to have ambitions. By the way, Napoleon Hill's next thing is temperance. You can't be getting drunk at the company party. By the way, it's called the company party, but it's more of a company function than it is a party. And don't forget that. Don't be getting drunk at the company party. Don't be doing things at the company party that you wouldn't do at the office, because that lack of temperance, whether it's overeating, over drinking, over anything, it's going to affect how people like you, and it's going to affect your career Another thing is patience. Patience, and I don't know what it is about patience, but if people are late, it ain't the end of the world. Now, if you're late, it is the end of the world. But if you're sitting here waiting for Mr. Seller, you had an appointment with him at 10, he doesn't show up till 10:15, don't display your irritation when he shows up. If you're irritated, keep that to yourself. Whether it's Mr. Seller you're trying to sell to, or somebody that's selling to you. And patience is just a good thing. By the way, patience in general, and when I say in general, you know, a lot of people, they get into a job and they're a salesman and they've been on the job 6 weeks and they want to be the sales manager. Well, you're not going to be the sales manager 6 weeks later, most likely. Most likely you're going to be the sales manager 6 weeks later. But there's a lot of people that patience has served them very, very well. And being patient in your job, you're the understudy, you're the second string quarterback, and next thing you know, you're the first string quarterback. And people can't even remember that old quarterback. Humility. Nobody likes arrogant people. Humility, not to an extreme, not to, I'm no good, but there's nothing wrong with, if it wasn't for my team, I wouldn't have been here accepting this award today. Humility goes a long, long way. Everybody likes that. Now, the next thing that Napoleon Hill talks about is proper dress. It's important that you dress properly. You need to be dressed properly. Now, as y'all know, I wear these Hawaiian shirts to teach in, and I just like it. That's why I do it. But if I were going out to give a speech somewhere, I don't need to show up in a Hawaiian shirt. I need to show up in a suit, which would be appropriate for the occasion. So you need to dress appropriately for the occasion. If you're going out to list a house, well, the better dressed you are, the better your chances of getting that listing. That's just all there is to it. Now, effective, Napoleon Hill calls it effective showmanship. You know, some people can explain something in a way that it just hits home with you, and other people explain the same thing and it just doesn't make any sense. And that's showmanship. That's showmanship. And now the next thing is sportsmanship, he mentions. Nobody likes people that are unfair, people that cheat. People, and by the way, I don't know why cheaters think nobody knows they're cheating. Everybody knows cheaters are cheating. It's like the rumor mill spreads the word. And so don't do things that are not sportsmanship. Now the next thing he mentions is the ability to shake hands properly. You know, it's funny, Napoleon Hill has 30 traits of a pleasing personality. And of course I could add another 30 to this, but he mentions that. And I think that is more important today in the 21st century than it was back when Napoleon Hill was around. The ability to shake hands properly is important. And when you shake hands with people, you need to make it a warm, friendly greeting. And you don't need to overpower them, but nobody likes to shake hands with a wet fish either. So have a good handshake, and if you don't know if you have one or not, go in and ask your sales manager. Just see what he says, or ask somebody else whose opinion you respect. But I think in business, this is usually the first impression that we make with everybody, and it's important. And the last thing that he mentions is what he calls personal magnetism. And personal magnetism is just that thing that attracts people to you. And, you know, we could do a whole 30 minutes about that, but it's basically just smiling at people, calling them by name, all the things that we know attract people to them. Let them talk more than you talk. That's all part of personal magnetism. And as I say, you could write a whole book about this very readily. But the more you do that, but consider this, the most likely reason Mr. Seller lists his house with you is because he likes you. There's not much more important than working on your personality and being likable. If I can help you with any kind of real estate school, we're right here in Orlando. We'd love to hear from you. It's Ron Clymer saying goodbye.